So I'm going to summarize my notes for the Northwest housing trial. I came in today about 1:35 in the afternoon, so Friday afternoon. I figured jury selection would take forever, but maybe it didn't because I think I missed a huge part of the trial already. But when I arrived, the companion of Teresa Sims was on the stand, and they were basically questioning him regarding his condo, which he rented to her adult son, John Natividad, and with a HUD Section 8 voucher. And so this kind of drug on and on for a long time. Basically, things about like how he paid rent or what like so there was some stuff about like he worked on the house by cutting up a tree, so that was a form of paying rent, and how that whether or not it was a conflict of interest was sort of the point of Northwest Housing's lawyer, I'm taking it. And he also testified as to her impact of losing her job at Northwest Housing, that she's been upset or been gone back to cigarette smoking and has been unable to find suitable employment. And she's applied for a wide variety of things. This is in Beau Peterson's court down on the first floor. They're reconvening Tuesday at 8:30 to settle some deposition matters, but really at 9 is when court begins. And it's expected to go up through noon on Friday, but maybe even longer. They really don't know. They have a whole bunch of witnesses, some of which are expected to go for as long as 4 hours for Teresa Sims, and then possibly 2 hours cross-examination. Let's see. So the witness, Helen McLean, basically there were two former NOAA employees who testified this afternoon. Helen McLean spoke. It got a little emotional, I would say, at a certain point, where she explains that to be adequate at this job, it takes 5 years of work, and that 5 years of training, so to speak. Like, it's when you have these positions filled by temporary or untrained people, it becomes very difficult to train them. And Miss LaRue was publicized in the paper. She's the attorney for Teresa Sims, but she was talking to this former employee about, let's see, talking about emails, administrative leave. Okay, I get it. So she had been on administrative leave with the warning not to contact Teresa Sims, but after an article appeared in the paper, and I'm assuming that's the Daily Historian because some of that was reprinted in Oregon Live, or the former Oregonian, she contacted and she said, I knew that it would be devastating to her. She's a friend. I couldn't let her go through that alone. So she reached out. And before the media stories, let's see, head of household. So then there's some stuff about how they compute. I think this was the self-sufficiency program. A lot of this was learning for me, like what's the difference between a Section 8 voucher and the self-sufficiency program. I think self-sufficiency is towards buying your own house. It wasn't completely clear to me, but that's what I think I understand. And things about maintaining your qualifications to keep programs up and how it works in terms of employment. And let's see, Johnson had very little interest in the program. Was it ever audited by HUD? Not interpreted to. Okay, so kind of this is basically dwelling on Teresa Sims' son, which I think because Teresa Sims sued, Northwest Housing's attitude is to go after her for her son receiving assistance or being low income enough to qualify for the assistance, then trying to play it out like it's conflict of interest. But one thing that kept coming up today is, did Todd Johnston know about this? And it would be like, yes, he knew. Yes, he knew. Yes, he knew. So for him to sort of suddenly have a problem with it when he's being accused of retaliation and mismanagement of funds over to Alan Evans' organization, Helping Hands, which is sort of the homeless shelter franchise that is migrating into the Wapato market with Julian Schnitzer. I think it will be interesting to find out more what the public is allowed to know about the Helping Hands mismanagement, which an unnamed source who I spoke to told me that HUD very specifically wants their funding to go for real permanent housing, and some of the Northwest Housing money that was being diverted into Alan Evans' operation was just completely not HUD appropriate for funding. So whatever little deal they had going on between Northwest Housing and Helping Hands, that is the story that isn't being really opened up enough. And I don't know how much of that's going to come out. It would be really useful if some people would go to that trial and report on it next week, Tuesday through Friday. Let's see. So blah, 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 kind of really boring stuff about her son and his funds in escrow, ledger interest. The thing that was, let's see, kind of interesting to me is how HUD manages their responsibilities. And this witness explained that they have a process of not harming the client. So if you have a drastic decrease in your income, they will try to address that immediately, so your rent will go down in terms of what your voucher covers. Whereas if you have an increase of income, paying a lesser amount of rent is actually not going to hurt you at all. And they have it deprioritized in their list of things to do. And because they're overburdened and overworked and have huge caseloads, that deprioritization could go on for like as much as 9 months. So that was news to me, because I wonder things like that, because they're so impossible to get through to on the phone, is what I experienced. If you have a question about recertification, it's just kind of impossible to get questions answered, which is part of why I thought, well, I should go to this trial. Maybe I can understand all these confusing questions that I don't understand about socialism in Clatsop County or socialized housing. So let's see, income decrease. Okay, so that triage thing, it's cute they use that word. Okay, I just explained all of that. Triage guide, housing guide. There were a lot of things they kept referring to like manuals with HUD and what HUD's practice and policy is. One thing, that was so cute, is she said, we're in the business of housing people, not hosing people. And in terms of not putting someone in jeopardy that they would be kicked out, like if they lose their job or they lose a part of their income. So they have a to do no harm type policy. So the need for better staffing, the part-time temps, not so good. Okay, medical leave, unpaid. So there was this big issue of leave, which I understood it that family medical leave, how long, intermittent, would they have a policy of trading leave time, or donating it, or sharing it? And then basically, let's see, one of Teresa Sims' son, I guess it's John Natividad, I don't know. I don't want to misrepresent anything at all. I guess it's somewhat confusing. But Johnston was CC'd on emails. Sims was, or I see, she was accused of playing favorites with Sims's kids, because I think her other kid, Ben, was a handyman, from what I could take it, or a maintenance guy. And he's maybe testifying next week. Something, Ryan Fleming, an investigator, auditor. Let's see. Response to the investigator. Back to Noah, attorney, brown suit. Okay, she had a nice suit. I liked her suit. No, they were both very nice lady lawyers, and I'm really kind of impressed by their kind of cool and couth demeanor. I would say the attorney for Noah has a little more facial expression. Like I could see she was just being like irritated. And I did overhear her when the courtroom was empty during a break, her saying, oh, something lies. And then I heard the other attorney say really smart and charming. And I don't know what she was talking about. Hopefully me. Yeah, right. Okay. Um, so we were the only members of the public. That was itself kind of strange because I'm like, somebody needs to be reporting on this, and I'm expecting the Daily Historian to do the job. Oh, and the Daily Historian articles hurting them, that really came up. The second witness was, I think her first name was Judy. Oh my gosh, see, they did take a lot of notes. And I knew it would be impossible to summarize it all in a, because I don't feel like typing this. It's my carpal tunnel syndrome, whatever. So basically, Sims pressure to donate leave to her son. Good supervisor report to Todd Johnston. So evidently this became this big issue. Waitlist caseload, no longer eligible. Let's see, limited. Who's this next? The next lady witness. It doesn't matter that he approved. So eventually, the next witness is getting written up, and then she retires of her own will. Whereas the other lady, I think, was put on administrative leave. I think her last name was Pagan, from what I could hear. Judy Pagan, maybe. She was the finance director. She had pre-existed Todd Johnston, too, which I get the feeling that there's some bitterness with these disgruntled employees who did everything before he got there, and then he just sort of shows up and pushes all the women out of their jobs, is what it looks like to me. And Todd Johnston body language, he kept like looking over behind his back to me too, but I don't know, maybe he remembers me asking him why like there was no proper sanitation at Owens Adair and why nothing was being like cleaned or maintained properly. I could hardly recognize him. He just looks kind of like a really just average looking look. Like I just nondescript is how I don't know what color his hair is, like short dishwater, kind of balding or something. But I feel really upset that they're just being consumed by this case, because what's going on with Noah while this, let's see, so basically retired good. So she got written up. Todd Johnston said she didn't follow the policy, and it doesn't matter that he approved the donated sick leave, it's against policy. And then LaRue was like, is this logical? And no. And then on cross-examination, she wanted to go back on a deposition where it appears that she was kind of trying to impugn the memory. Oh, and this most awkward point is where the Northwest Housing lawyer, who I think her name was like Goit, it was the kind of, I couldn't tell if it was Coit or Goit. I think it sounded more like Goit when Peterson pronounced it. Like she kind of had this point about like, well, why is your companion, have you referred to him as your husband or wife, or like, why are you doing that for purposes of this lawsuit? And then why did he have a post office box in Washington where he maintained his business address in Washington in Lakeview? And basically it was kind of trying to imply that there was some kind of something shady or fraudulent going on with how this funding was being allocated for her son's housing benefit. And it got kind of awkward where like Miss LaRue kind of picked up the pieces of this lawyer trying to basically put them on the spot for, I guess, not being married. And LaRue was like, is it legal to live together without being married? And he's like, yes, of course. And so it was sort of like really old fashioned. And like at some point, the lawyer for Northwest Housing asked Teresa Sims' companion of 18 years if they were intimate. And he's just like, well, I'll let the judge rule on that objectionable question if it's irrelevant to the judge. And then the judge was like, well, I didn't get any objection. And then LaRue was like, objection, it's irrelevant. So at the point that the lawyer for the housing department wants to know who you're having sex with, God, or like intimate with, like, and I got the feeling that, well, anyway. I guess that's all. That's just all for now.